morning, good morning. Good morning. Welcome back. What a great day yesterday. It was nice to hear and see the energy, the passion back in the rooms and in the hallways as people were coming out of sessions and talking. It was really, really great to see that again. It just kind of brings us back to everything that we represent here at the TASS conference. So great to have you back. We have another great day planned today, but we're going to get things kicked off with a little bit of information about the, and I'm going to screw this up if I don't read it, College Literacy and Learning Special Interest Group with my friend and colleague, Kristen Kelly.
Thanks for letting me do a little plug every now and then, Vicki. My name is Kristen Kelly, and I'm the chair of the College Literacy and Learning. It's a special interest group through the International Literacy Association. And for several years, we had a conference kind of in tandem with TASS, and it would take place on the Sunday before everything began, but it would finish up a couple hours before the evening reception. So I just wanted to kind of let everybody know about that again, and kind of if many of you tend to plan to come to TASS again in the future, you might come a little early. It's a $25 conference. It's lots of good practical teaching and learning. So if your grad students are interested in maybe doing some presentations, or you're interested in doing some presentations, consider that we will be sending some information along with information for TASS in the future. So I just wanted to do a little plug for that. I also am going to do a session on Wednesday at 10 o'clock, and so you could come and learn a little bit more about that and the Journal of College Literacy and Learning as well. So just a little plug, so thank you.
All right, thanks, Kristen. So I've got a few announcements before we get kicked off with another great keynote speaker this morning. First is, if you're interested in joining the proposal review committee, please find either Molly Minus or myself. Where's Molly? Is she in here? I was gonna have you raise your hand, Molly, but maybe she's not in yet. So find me, or if you know Molly, you can find her. We'd love to have you join the committee. It's kind of a lot of fun because you get to see and kind of read about what potential proposals will be before the conference actually begins. So find one of us today or tomorrow. We did add a repeat session today, so it is on Guidebook, but if you have your schedule already figured out, you may want to look back at that. So we added, it's called How to Make Quality Videos with Closed Captioning for free. So this will be scheduled from 10 to 10:45, excuse me, in New River A. So note that change. A few things with Guidebook. So as I was saying when the conference started, this is our first year with Guidebook, so it's certainly a learning process for us. And so we appreciate the feedback that we've been getting. A few things with that though. If you want to show up in the attendees list, you have to log in and create a profile within Guidebook itself. And if you need help with that, you can find me. I'd be happy to help you. Pretty easy to do. But we realized yesterday that not everyone was showing up in the attendees list, and that's why, because you have to log in and create a profile in Guidebook to do that. We did add emails to all of the presenters now, so you can actually contact the presenter through Guidebook. Their actual email isn't listed, but there's a link there now. If you go into the presenter list that says, if you click on a presenter, it'll say contact or something, and then you can send them an email directly that way. So we heard that come up a little bit yesterday, so we added that in. And again, these are things next year we'll have already figured out. Presenters, just a reminder, if you would like any of your documents or slides or anything uploaded into Guidebook, just send me those as a PDF and I can upload them to your session either before, during, or after your session. I'll get them up there as quickly as I can. Another obvious reminder to continue to complete those session evaluations. They're really important, not only for the presenters, but for the conference staff as well. Also, today we're going to start reminding, because there probably will be some people leaving at some point, please remember to also complete the overall conference evaluation. That's in Guidebook as well. If you scroll down to the bottom of that list where it has everything, it's down there towards the bottom. So please complete that at the conclusion of your conference. And let's see, I think that was it for Guidebook. Any questions or issues anybody's having with Guidebook? Yes. I think it stays active for quite a while. I don't know an exact date. I can try to figure that out today and maybe put out a notification. But I know it stays. You can access it for quite a while. So, yes.
This is a vague question. It's not really relevant anymore. But I got onto Guidebook a couple weeks ago when I was still an hour different time zone, and my watch is notifying me as if I was still in my other time zone. So I don't know if there's a setting to change that. My actual app is fine, but the notifications pop up an hour. It's weird.
I don't know. I will look into
I
that.
just wanted to mention it.
So the question was a potential issue with time zones. If you kind of logged into the time zone, you know, if you're an hour behind where your home institution is, came here. The app, it sounds like, updated or changed over, but the notifications are still coming an hour early. So I'll ask Guidebook about that. Good. Cool. And my notes went away. All right. Anything else while we're on Guidebook? All right. Let's see. Also, next thing, we are very excited. Yesterday, Ed Luna and I were at, there he is. We spent some time redeveloping the TASS social media platforms, right? So we have all new social media. We're gonna start fresh with things for a couple different reasons. Doesn't really matter, but you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, all right? And we are TASS EDU 1989. Does anybody know what 1989 is for? Should be pretty simple, right? The very first TASS conference, all right? The very first TASS conference happened in 1989. So if you're a quick mathematician, you'll be saying, well, wait a minute, this is the 32nd TASS conference and that math doesn't add up. We didn't count the conference a couple years ago when COVID hit, so that's why we're off by a year. But TASS EDU 1989, again, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, all right? And I will try over the next couple days to get things posted. If you take pictures and have pictures you'd like to upload, please consider uploading those into Guidebook and then also on those social media sites and use hashtag TASS2022. All right, and then we can link those in. And again, thanks to Ed. He was tremendous in helping me figure all of this out yesterday. So, okay, that's all I have. So, I would like to now invite up Michelle Levine, the Associate Vice President of the Center for Teaching Excellence at Broward College, to introduce this morning's keynote speaker.
Good morning. I'm very excited to announce our keynote speaker, Esmeralda Sweeney. She is our Associate Vice President of Student Achievement Initiatives at Broward College. AVP Sweeney has over 20 years of experience in higher ed. She is fully committed to equity and student achievement. In her current role, she leads retention initiatives and programs with a focus on underserved student populations. In addition, she provides college-wide vision and leadership for wraparound student holistic supports. Prior to her AVP role, she was the AD, Associate Dean of the Academic Success Center at the North Campus. Esmeralda Sweeney is a leadership fellow of the National Community College Hispanic Council. She has received a NASDAQ Excellence Award for her work and was selected to be part of the Women Leading Broward County Leadership Training. Sorry, I should be wearing my glasses. Esmeralda Sweeney earned a Bachelor of Arts degree from Florida International University and holds a master's degree in Human Relations and Business from Amberton University. And when we were asked who we should choose for this keynote speaking event, Esme was the first person we thought of. So we're very excited to have her here today. Please join me in welcoming AVP Sweeney.
Thank you, Michelle. Good morning, everyone. How's everyone doing? Good, good. This is my first TASS, and honestly, I was telling Mary last night, I don't know what took me so long. You guys are doing such a good job, and this is lovely, and the sessions are amazing. So thank you so much for inviting me today to be part of the conversation on how we can best support our students, right? So I'm going to be talking to you today about designing successful initiatives in support of underserved population of students. But before we jump into the initiatives themselves, I wanted to take some time on going over the design of the initiatives. because I feel that sometimes that is more important if you want to guarantee the success of an initiative, to make sure that you have the correct building blocks as you're building it, so that you can then make a strong case of why your initiative is so good that you need more funding and scaling, right? So the first thing we have to keep in mind is who is in your class. Do you know who's in your class? Do you know as an advisor who is that student sitting across from you? And by that, I don't mean if you know their name, if they're married, how many classes they're gonna take next semester, but specifically if you know the obstacles that that student is facing that semester that is impeding their academic success, right? So President Glenn touched a little bit on this yesterday. So the Hope Center conducted a survey of 38,000 students across 26 states and 54 institutions. That includes 2 years and 4-year institutions, and Broward College was one of those institutions. And this is what they found. That half of our students are experiencing at least moderate anxiety. That nearly 3 in 5 of our students are experiencing basic needs, necessities. For Broward College, that percentage is 72%. This was after COVID, right? That 44%, almost half of our students are experiencing food insecurities. And look at the homelessness percentage, 15 to 11%. Broward College is around there. But sometimes I feel like percentages can be a little bit deceiving, right? Because you might say, well, compared to 44, 11, 15, might not sound as bad. But when you look at the size of an institution, let's say for Broward College, that number is in the thousands for us. It would be like 5,000 students are experiencing housing or homelessness as a result of COVID, and the numbers were already around that area before, right? And of course, the Hope Center usually looks at gaps in equity, which is very important. We should always disaggregate data, and they found a 19% percentage gap. Now, let's say that you don't have Hope Center and you don't have that information. There are other ways that we could get to know our students really well. So one of the ways is the climate surveys. We take advantage of the climate survey not just to ask about climate of the students, but actually to see the obstacles that they're facing. Like at our last climate survey, we asked the students, what are the 3 top obstacles to your academic success right now? And as you would probably guess, since we're all practitioners in higher ed, there were not issues inside the classroom. There were transportation, employment, transportation, and mental health, in that order. That's what they told us before the pandemic. So imagine that, right? We also could use the SESI. The SESI, a lot of our institutions do that. You can customize and add a module just for COVID-19 if you want, or add your own questions there as well. I'm a big fan of aligning effort and simplifying duplication. So if there's something that you're already doing, that everybody has buy-in, try to write that, right? And targeted surveys, very, very, very important, because not all initiatives are one size fits all. You really, 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 to be successful and support underserved population of students, you really have to customize what you're doing to that particular population of students. And the targeted reminds me of, I was in a conference once, and this was a faculty talking about decisions that higher ed administrations were doing. And the faculty said, do not talk about us without us. And I feel that that applies to our students too. Sometimes we're racking our brain trying to think, what are we gonna do with students? But have we actually taken the time to go to a large, at least statistically significant group of those students and ask them, what is it that you need? Because the needs can change, right? And it might not be what we think from the maybe handful of students that we interact, the big picture. So that's very important. So let's talk about designing the initiative itself. Once you know your students really well, once you know the actual targeted population of students that you found by disaggregating your data, like we do with the climate survey, who's actually being underserved, right? That's the goal. So that you can determine that, because it might be a population that you were not even thinking about. So effective initiatives, at the very least, have these elements. You want them to be at scale. The days of pilot programs with 25, 50 students, 75 students, those days are over. Why? Because there is a sense of urgency. Like, we really need to move the needle on completion and retention. We cannot take years to try it out, a different program every year and see what works, right? We don't have that luxury anymore. The resources are very, are much more smaller, and we really want to show outcomes. So what we want to do is make sure that our initiatives are at scale. Now, I'm sure you're thinking, well, it must be nice to be able to scale initiatives. I can only afford 50, 75 students, like I wish I could. So we're going to talk a little bit about how you can make your initiatives sustainable through targeted grants. And that's why it's so important to know your population and get data that you can use for that. And a key partnership. Sometimes it helps just to have the human capital assistant, even if it's not, just the funding. And again, we talk about the targeted, how important that is, and then the data informed decisions. When you're designing your initiative, you always want to track the outcome of that initiative, right? If it's working for that population of student. Because it's not working, you want to be nimble and be able to adjust as you're going through. Sometimes it's scary because we're sad and we thought something was going to work. But some initiatives, and honestly, I think the best initiative, start as one thing, and 2 years, 3 years down the line, and now as something else, right? But hopefully better because we're learning, right? That's why I'm a big proponent of 3 years. It's a hard narrative to sell to the top administration, let me tell you, right? But you really need 3 years, and the research also supports that, to be able to really fine-tune how an initiative is gonna show. So ask for the funding and make a 3-year plan. Even if they don't ask you for it, just here's my 3-year plan. And try to get that commitment long-term so that you can actually show. And sometimes it's a cultural change, right? So the culture of your institution needs to get it and know that it's available. All those things take a lot of time. The other thing is sometimes we're measuring the wrong things to show effectiveness. And we think some initiatives are not working, but it's because we're not measuring the right thing. So we have to be very based on research. So for example, learning communities. We all love learning communities. They're wonderful. We started them at the college, then we kind of stopped them. But one of the things is because they were measuring if learning communities was effective in completion and retention. Learning communities are not meant to be effective 3 years on the road. If a student takes one learning community class, 3 years later, that student is gonna graduate. That's not what the research does. However, it's really, really good at increasing sense of belonging and course retention. So if you're establishing that initiative, that's what you should be measuring, and measuring that only. But sometimes we have the bad habit of only wanting completion and retention. Not everything leads to that. So we also have to be advocates and proponents of what really we're doing, and then showing the worth based on effectively measuring what we want. And this is my favorite, academic, and we're trying to be much more intentional about that. Successful initiatives have a perfect marriage between student support and academic. Why? Because who do our students spend the most time with? Faculty, right? In the classroom. It is estimated that a student that is a full-time student spends 95% of their time in the classroom. A part-time student, 87%. They don't see advisors, maybe 2 hours a semester. If hopefully they make it to an advising appointment, financial advisors, right? Myself, they don't see us. You want your faculty to be your best champion and your best advocate. And when you do that, it's easy work, let me tell you, because those initiatives sell themselves, right? Because also the other thing that gives us that is that because they spend so much time with our student, who other than them to really, really know the struggles that other students are facing and what they need, right? So when we did our student climate survey the last time, we actually had a faculty component to it, and we did a survey for faculty to fill out on their perception of the student climate, because we felt they could give us some more broader look of scope as opposed to the individual person as well. Now, let me tell you about Joe. I don't know his real name, but Joe, but the story is real. Joe was a minority male student that came to Broward College. He came to us after him and his mom fled his country because they were fleeing an abusive relationship. So when they came here, they had very little resources. They hardly had any money, and Joe struggled every single semester to pay for classes. And to the point that his church was collecting every semester funds to be able to help them pay for his classes. Lucky for Joe, he came across the Minority Male Initiative at the college, and as a first-generation student and a minority male, he was able to be part of that initiative that actually helped him. So the first underserved population of students that I want to bring to your attention to is first-generation and minority male. The core of our minority male initiative is mentor, peer mentoring, faculty mentor. So peer mentor is a wonderful initiative for underserved population because not only does it help every population of student, it's particularly effective for first generation, which is our focus, and minority male students as well. Now, remember how we talk about the data-informed decision? Mentor is actually one of those initiatives that have long-term completion and retention effect. So if I had to pick one, which is where I was a few years ago, you have X amount of money, what do you want to do to go and you contribute to retention? This is the initiative that I would have, and I recommend that you pick, because this is where you get more bang for your buck, if it's done right? That's another thing. So I want to talk to you a little bit about our mentoring program so that I can give you a specific example of how all the elements that I mentioned went into the design. So one of the things that we did first was actually survey the people that were already at the college doing pockets of mentoring. Everybody had little pockets of different kind of mentoring, right? So we made a case for the scaling piece, right? We brought all of them together. We said, we bring them all together, we can actually get funding, right? And impact even more students than if we're doing all in little pockets, and every student was getting a different experience depending on the campus that they were going, which is not good. Because our students see one college, right? Or one university. When you tell them if they go to another campus, they're not gonna get what they had in the other campus. That doesn't compute for them, right? So the first thing that we found out was that we wanted to pay our peer mentors. Our students are really struggling. So we knew from the get-go that people that already were doing this work told us, if you're gonna do this with volunteers, this is not gonna work. So that allows us to go specifically target grants that allow us to do that. Our AmeriCorps is a wonderful grant for that because it gives you living allowance, and at the end of the year, it gives students scholarships. So the students love it. The other thing that we did is, I don't know about your college, but I'm sure we're all overworked, overextended, doing a million jobs at once, right? There was only like 2 or 3 of us in my department. So one of the other thing is, well, must be nice to have the money, but how we even have the bandwidth to run all of this? So we partnered with Peer Forward, which is a nonprofit organization. And from Peer Forward, it was the first time they were doing mentoring in high school, but it's the first time they wanted to do mentoring in college. So we're kind of like their guinea pigs. But it was a win-win situation because we got staffing from them. They did recruiting, they did interview, they did the coaching and training of the peer mentoring. And at the same time, that worked for us, and they learned about higher ed, which is great. So that's our program, and it's working. The data is supporting what we said it was gonna do. So we have here the retention rates. In green, our peer leaders, which are students, handful of alumni, 2 or 3 there, but there are students, 195%, 100% fall to fall retention rates. Our mentees, 81% fall to fall. And the general population is 60%. Again, this is general data, not disaggregated by race or gender, so there might be some discrepancy in that. And look at those completion rates. I mean, when I saw those completion rates, I feel like this is what dreams are made of. If we could only transfer those completion rates to all of our students, right? So this is really working for us, and the initiative themselves is really serving that first generation of students and minority males. Now, we also looked and disaggregated the data and went to the minority male initiative students themselves, the ones that were getting mentoring, to see how those students were doing. And what we found is when we compare him to other minority males that were enrolled at that same time, during that same period, every semester since fall 2019, those students attended and earned more credits than anybody else. Now, this is huge, and we just got this data, so this is very exciting for me that we can share this data. You get to see it for the first time. Because if you know anything about early momentum metrics and key performance indicators, this is one of the top predictors of completion and retention. So you definitely, this outcome of the mentoring program is really a good indicator that it is gonna work and we're gonna see results, right, in the long run. So for our low-income students and student parents with a focus on single moms, that's the latest initiative for underserved students that we're focusing in right now. We have a few other initiatives that we do in addition to scholarships and financial aid, because those things are not enough anymore, right? Our students are still struggling. So let me talk about you, though this is the most popular, everybody loves this one. And Melanie that works for the college that runs this program knows about this. Students love it. So we enter a partnership with Lyft to be able to provide free rides for the students as long as the ride begins or ends at our college. Now, remember how I told you that one of the top 3 were transportation challenges? So when it's time to HER funding, when it's trying to come up with what we're gonna do with the money, I already have my data ready saying this is a top obstacle. So I already have supporting documentation to kind of advocate to put some funding aside for this. So the students love this. We also expanded to include clinicals and internship, especially for our health science and nursing students, because that's required, right? It's like a class, they have to go to the hospitals. So that we cover that as well. And we also expanded to look, if you're familiar with C Campus, which is a daycare approved financial assistant, they can go to daycare and on case-to-case by basis apply for housing and other things like that. And this is what we're founding with Lyft. We're going into year 2 and renewing that contract. The majority of our students use it to attend class, which is what you want, right? They're traveling between campuses, which they tell us every year that it's a challenge for them because they might get a ride to one campus, but how do they go to the other campuses? Their family are not gonna come back and take them again. And the library and ASC. ASC is our learning center, tutoring lab, math lab, that sort of stuff, which is great. And then when we started the student on the impact, always survey, because I want to have data too to show that it's working. Would you have dropped out if you have not had this support? And the majority of our students said that it was extremely and somewhat likely that they would. We also asked them how helpful this was to your student success. Again, tying everything back to the success of the student. And 95% it was extremely helpful. So if you look in there, we have some quotes from what our Lyft students are saying, but basically they're very grateful. They're very grateful because they're really struggling right now, and they're grateful for that program. But at the same time, they talk about bus, because some people say, well, why don't they take the bus? It takes hours. I know a student that wakes up at 5 o'clock in the morning to get a class at 8, because it takes a while. The weather is another issue. Sometimes they're not reliable. Sometimes the student is on time at the bus stop, but they don't get to campus and then they're late for class, right? Which the faculty wouldn't like. The other initiative that we just started, again, like I said, it was the newest one, was student parents. We did a lot of survey, a lot of focus group on the student parents initiative, and what we found that these were the top, the 4 themes that the students tell us. They're struggling with finances, with affording childcare, class modality. Now they would love every class to have an online counterpart so that it's more flexible for them. And they also talk a lot about supportive faculty. And what they talk about here is when we ask them, what do you want faculty to know? And what they said is that they're not looking for a handout. They're not looking for a special treatment. What they're looking is for empathy and understanding. And we know that the faculty or the staff is not being on purpose, right? And I'll give you an example, a perfect example of that. We have a faculty that is right now in this initiative, in this task force. And she said before she had a kid, she had a very, very strict policy, cell phones off in the classroom. Nobody can have their cell phone on. Well, she had a child, the child is 1, she has to drop off the child at daycare. Guess who needs to have their phone on? It was her own realization after that experience that she's like, again, it's the same person, but now that she went through the experience, She said, I cannot ask. This is unrealistic of me to ask for a student, because the students are not nervous that maybe they're trying to get in touch with them, the daycare, and that they're not available. So we were able to funnel some funding because we knew exactly what the student wanted, money to help pay for childcare. And we did $3.6 million and help 1,000 students. We just finished doing that and are doing survey, thank you, and then doing surveys to measure that impact. But we know for sure students have cried when they got it. A student said, listen, I already had paid for my semester in the spring, but I'm gonna save that money and put my kid in summer camp. And if you're a mom, summer camp is so expensive. And that student is not gonna put the summer camp so that they can go on vacation. That student's gonna put them summer camp, like she said, so she can come back to your college and pay tuition. We get that money back one way or another, right? In the way of retention. This is another really popular one, laptop learner program. And we started this at the beginning of the pandemic, but now we are institutionalized it because it's very popular. Students tell us that, they would not have graduated if they didn't have that it's very 90% that it was very useful, right, to their success and staying and retain at the institution. One of the things that we're gonna do now to allow access, we're gonna give some of those kind of like Amazon lockers where the students can go in the library and then get a laptop and put them back all the time that the libraries are open because our buildings are closed, right? That's another thing the student parents told us. Monday through Friday, 9 to 5 supports, again, a thing of the past. People have jobs, they have kids, right? They're not during that time. So we try to, as much as possible, whether it's the food pantry, laptop, any support, to try to give them access. And usually libraries are open until late. So we always go to them and bother them. Can we please put lockers in your building and try to convince them that it's a good thing, right? But one of the things that I really want to say about this one and Lyft and the student parent is that we were very intentional at trying to help the student as much as we can, 100%. The Lyft ride used to be that program they used to get a 50% discount. For the daycare, they wanted to give them like a 40% assistance. For the laptop, they wanted to return it every semester. No, because guess what? The student doesn't have the other half. You think you're helping them, and in theory, right, it sounds right, the more we spread the funding, the more students we help. But when the student that is struggling and is underserved is already in the negative, helping them a little bit is not really helping them that much. So we made the intentional decision. Then for Lyft, they get 100% of the ride. For the student parent, we calculated a whole semester of at least one child. And again, that's just one child. I had to sell that. I'm like, what if the student have 2 children? That is 50%, right? Because they wanted to reduce that a little bit. And for the laptop, the students can keep the laptop until they graduate. All we ask is that they stay enrolled. That's it. Right? They can keep it until then, and I think the students really like that as well. And regarding food insecurity, I wanted to go beyond the pantry, because I think everybody knows having pantry, which is wonderful. But one of the things that we found with the food insecurity initiative that we started, we scale it, is what we did in the last couple of years. This initiative in particular, I was very surprised because it ended up transforming our students just as it must transform our staff. And sometimes that would happen, right? It really touched the hearts of everyone at the college. And going back to that academic piece, I'll tell you why is that. Because the faculty in the academic department and the deans were already doing this work. They were already seeing what some of us were not seeing, that they had to keep snacks in their drawers for when the students are coming by, right? And giving them something because they didn't have anything to eat, right? So what's happened is, if you see here in the first picture, this is at the beginning of the pandemic. We couldn't do the pantry, so we do food distribution. And yet, being nimble, if you cannot do one thing, but you have the funding and the capacity, do something else to try to address it. The students holding thank you signs because we cannot get out of the car, wear your mask. So they were holding thank you card to tell us they're thankful. We set up an Amazon wish list. This works really well, super easy for people to make donation of hygiene items. So you just send out the link in email, people order it, and then back then, before we were open, this is my house actually, these are all the boxes of the wonderful Broward College faculty and staff. sending, but now they get delivered automatically to the food pantry. So everybody loves that really well. And then you see the staff volunteer here in the rain. If you know South Florida weather, rain, thunder, 100-degree weathers. But, you know, Ed was part of the being in the volunteer too. And you just have to go one time. And just seeing the smile on that student when you put that food in the car and how grateful they are for everything that they get hooked right away. And that formed just a caring community on the campus, right? How all of us, and gives such a message to the student that all of us as a college care about you and don't want you to be hungry. So we schedule volunteer lunches. We also have a class component with Professor Mirella here. She started that. This is the academic piece where she actually have, as part of her class, have a student collecting donation, stocking the pantry, volunteer at the pantry, which is great, and just part of her curriculum and her syllabus every semester, which is wonderful because that gives us sustainability too, right? And something sad that we found is that we had a lot of staff coming to us asking for food. It's not just our students. And that really was hard, to see. And there was only so much we can do. So a spin-off group of that started doing once a month on Saturday food distribution for the staff. And that's working really well as well. It's one of those initiatives that you're kind of sad that it's working so well and that we get so many responses. Like you feel bad being happy because there's such a great need, right? Other things that we're doing. So again, the pantry is wonderful. We had a student that came to our pantry that had not eaten for 2 days. The student was there. We gave him ready to eat snacks, grab and go, and soup. So it's great because it helps an immediate need, right? That student is hungry at that time, they're going to class, they need to eat. But at the same time, you want to provide long-term solutions for your students, not just the stuff, right? So we're partnering with Single Stop. Single Stop is a wonderful platform, but the students put in 15 minutes, fill out a survey, and automatically tells the student what they're pre-qualified for or in terms of aids, right, in federal aids. They feel that students usually don't apply for those things because they feel that they're not gonna get it anyways. But at least if they know what they pre-qualify, there's more of incentive to actually fill out. The other thing that Single Stop is, they just have to put in their zip code and it automatically maps out for them all the food pantry, housing assistant, legal assistant that is around on the radios. We're gonna help students with SNAP application, filling out on the pantry coming soon, and we're also gonna have nutritional classes as well. Now, mental health is something that is not just, as we've been discussing, of underserved population and students, but it really affects all of us, right? And not even just the students, it affects us, right? It was hard to go online and remote and make sure that our students were 150% taken care of. And what about us, right? We also went through that as well. So mental health is very important. So I wanted to make sure to mention some of the things that we're doing in terms of increasing mental health support at the institution. So you know the data that we found, right? So the first goal that we wanted to do was increase access. Again, right now the counseling center that we partnered with, it's 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. Again, that doesn't work for our students. So we're starting to expand those hours to Saturdays, Sundays, evenings, when our students actually have time to go and do it, at least some of our students, right? The other thing that we're looking is platforms that can do 24/7. So we're looking into that as well. We're also gonna add a medical component 24/7 too. So we're looking into that too. One of the things too that we heard about from faculty was that they really, really feel unequipped. Our students come to us with so much trauma, and they're coming to you again because they see you the most, they're most comfortable with you, and they're venting and downloading all their struggles. And it's so hard for the faculty that they're trying to teach and help you academically to even know where to send you. And sometimes they know where to send you, but they don't know exactly if you qualify, what are the exactly intricacies of that support, right? No, so that's also a challenge. So we heard loud and clear from our faculty that they need better support and how to support the student. So we're doing a lot of work on that in training. Shameless plugs right here for a second. We have, our college has a session this afternoon of 2 ladies that are part of the task force and lead. Also, we have a grant for that, right? You see a pattern, 3-year grant. So We also have that going, so they're gonna go over everything that we do, so I don't wanna steal their thunder too much. Now, for Minority Meal Initiative, this is an interesting one, because we felt, well, if we increase access and promote it to them, that should be it, right? Not for that population of students. So we went and talked to minority meal chairs and staff of the Minority Meal Initiative and other colleagues, and they say the stigma is too strong. Just telling them to come, that's not gonna help. So we're like, okay, what are we gonna do? So what they recommend, which is what we're gonna do, we're gonna couch the mental health in a module of wellness in general. So we're gonna give them a series of how to stay well, which would include physical health. We're gonna insert mental health there in one of the sessions, maybe financial health, that sort of stuff. So they felt like if we couch it that way, it's less intimidating, and they get a better picture that is part of a whole, not that you need mental health. So that's where we're gonna try that. So I'll let you know, hopefully next year, maybe we can present on that and tell you how that worked out for us. For the LGBTQIA community, we actually have a BC Pride initiative. That one is geared more towards staff, faculty, and administrator, with the concept that if we help increase inclusivity, safety for our staff administrator, that they in turn will do the same for the students, right? But we do some things for the students as well. In this case, we started a support group with our counseling center. We partnered with them, and also another partnership with our local LGBTQ organization that does this. That's what they do day in and day out. And we offer them virtual support groups as well. So did you wonder what happened to Joe? So Joe graduated from Broward College, yay. And then Joe transferred to our local state university. And as one can imagine, his struggles didn't finish then, right? Because if you're low income, it's just, it's part of you. And when he struggled a lot but to pay for his classes, what did he do? Do you think he went to his new university people that, no, right? You're saying no. He went to his previous mentor from the college before, because students that are in great need are the least likely to come forth and ask for help. And if you can imagine, it's not good. It doesn't feel good to be, hey, I'm poor. Hey, I'm slept in my car before I came to your class. They're not gonna volunteer that information. You really have to form a connection with them, and for them to feel that you really truly care, and it's safe for them to share that information with you, right? So luckily, we knew colleagues in the university, and the university has been wonderful and set him up, not like us at the community college every semester finding money. They already told him, we got you for the 4 years. They got him an NSF grant, and they already put even a larger vision. He said, you're gonna be a doctor, because that's what he wanted to do. It's like, we're gonna make sure that you're a doctor. Now, financially, that's good for his classes, but he also encountered some housing insecurity recently this past semester. But now this time, he went to his university, because now he knows it's a safe place, they can talk to them, and they found him a dorm to stay. So we have big hopes for Joe. We think once he graduates, he's gonna do good, because he has a great heart, and we're just so glad. This is the power of initiatives, right, that make a connection. This is the power because they go beyond what you're even doing for the student. It actually teaches the student that it's okay, that there are people that care about you, that this is what we're here for, right? And we meet the students where they are instead of waiting for the students to come. So it definitely supports the notion that CESI found among 2 million surveys over a decade, 2,000 focus groups, that when they ask the student from their point of view, what keeps you coming back to the college? What keeps you there? What the students said over and over again is that someone at the college knows my name. And isn't that the goal of every initiative? You want to touch that student and make sure that the student feels that, right? And the other thing that I want to leave you with is that sometimes we're so focused in the struggling, what the struggle of the students are doing and so much of the suffering, that we miss the wonderful qualities that the students also have, right? So for the student that is coming to class, even though they're having transportation challenges, mental health challenges, and employment, that student has grit, right? For the student that haven't eaten 2 days or go to your class after sleeping in their car, that student is very resilient, which is a great thing. And our students very commonly have 2 or 3 jobs, or are going full-time and working full-time. They're not lazy, they are very, very hard working, right? And for that student that is a first-generation student that don't have anyone to guide them in their household on how to do things because they don't know how to navigate, even us, it's hard to navigate college, right? It's very complex. Or they might even have family members that are discouraging them because they feel, why are you going to college? You should be making money, you should be contributing to the household. Those students are breaking ground, and those students are actually making history, right? Thank you, that's all I have. And I think we have some time for questions, if there are any. All right. Well, thank you very much. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Esmeralda. That was very inspiring. Some very positive, outstanding initiatives taking place at Broward College. I think we can take some inspiration from and take it back to our own institutions, which is truly what this is all about. Even if starting at the grassroots, low level, and kind of working up to get some of these things implemented. A couple of my takeaways from that. One was the impact and the importance of student voices. Don't always assume that you know who your students are and that you know what they want and need. When she was talking, it reminded me when I was working with some first generation students, which we did some programming for, one of the students said, if it's supposedly for us, but never really includes us, it was never really for us in the first place. And that just hit me, we can think we know what students need, but get out there and talk to students and figure out what their needs and wants are. So great stuff. And then I love finishing with the asset-based kind of perspective. I think sometimes we look at students from a deficit model, especially working with first-gen low-income students, but they're generational trailblazers, and so look at it from that. They're some of the greatest problem solvers you have on your campus because they've been doing it their whole lives. So capitalize on that a little bit. So great. Again, once again, nice job, Esmeralda. With that, we have a little time, so we enjoy some company and some networking. Our first sessions begin at 10. Presenters, if you need clickers, remember you can check those out from the registration table. With that, enjoy today at TASS.
So I'm going to give you a couple minutes, ready, set, go.
At Northern Essex, he has provided leadership for the college's involvement.
Thank you, Elian, for the generous introduction. Who's been to TASS before? Most of the people in the room.
Out the demographic data by pathway.
Broward's always been on the leading edge, sort of cutting edge of innovation in higher education.
Of why your initiative is so good that you need more funding and scaling, right?
Thank you so much, Esmeralda. That was very inspiring.